Be there.
I was about to be like,
I'll be there.
and then I don't know
We're
the rest
back.
of it.
Oh, yeah. Get some jock jams, get pumped up for this podcast.
I'll probably get canceled for this, but I'm going to still stand behind it. I am not a jock jams kind of fan.
Yeah.
I know that like everybody my age is and should be, but I actually have a really good reason. The reason for it is when I competed in gymnastics, like that was the song. That was like the only song. It's like every single gym in the warm-up area before the day started would be jock jams. And so unfortunately, know a lot of people are like, God damn, fuck her. But I'm not, I can't hang with the jock jams. So I'm gonna just be honest, y'all. Oh my goodness, guys. It has been a minute. We're so excited to be back on the mic. Basically, Alex was in Egypt for 10 days and then I had surgery. And so we had pre-recorded a bunch of episodes and kind of been coasting, but being on the mic right now, feeling like hooking up for the first time in a while because being a little rusty and awkward over here. So we're just going to keep grooving. But wanted to start today with just a little chatter, kind of some catch up. And then I'm really excited about today's topic. But obviously, Alex got to go to Egypt. So I'm sure people would love to like vicariously live through him and hear a little bit about it. So what was your overall review of Egypt? Was there anything that you were super surprised by? Alternatively, anything that you weren't super psyched about? Like, give us the tea.
No, I enjoyed the whole trip. I mean, Egypt was incredible. I had a great time. We had an awesome tour guide. His name is Mohammed. And I think like Trova Trip like hooked us up with him and he was fantastic. He was super patient with everybody. Cause you know, like when you're traveling with a bunch of people, like you got a lot of different personalities and, you know, he was really good about handling everybody and staying super chill. He was awesome.
Well, I feel like too, when you go to other countries, cause we have that same experience in Belize, like the dude that took us scuba diving, like high on life, like so psyched about it. It's like, I don't operate at that level. Like, how do I get on that level? Because like whatever you're doing, holy shit, man.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I mean, he gave us like a lot of tips and just let us know, you know, ahead of time, like what not to do in order to not like get scammed or like go with some suspect people or anything like that. So he really looked out for us and just made it. He made the trip like super smooth. Like we knew exactly where we needed to go and there were no hiccups and like he was on the spot with making sure like transport was there. Like we never were late anywhere. Like he was awesome. Can't recommend him enough.
What was the food situation like? Because I know we were DMing back and forth like, dude, you would have died on this trip.
I mean,
this is good. You're not here, LCK.
There's no way. Like, it was actually probably good the blood clot like happened because I was just thinking like me and Jennifer and Nicole, Butter and Biscuits and Rumble Bomb, we were talking. We were like, man, Lori would have not made it.
Like, come back like 10 pounds lighter.
Well, I think you would have been checking into like the Four Seasons and it'd be like, yo, catch me over here. Y'all go. But yeah, no, the food was great. When we ate at like people's houses and stuff, like we had an Egyptian family, an Egyptian woman like make us food. And we went to like a Nubian family and they made us food. But yeah, I mean, you know, Egypt, the main staple crop for thousands of years has been wheat. So like if you eat gluten, if you don't eat gluten, like they even put gluten, they even put little, they put little noodles in the rice, like little rice-a-ronis, like they put little noodles in the rice. So you can't pick it out. Like there's no way. And I mean, there was one day, I know when we recorded the podcast about travel, there was like, yeah, I'm just gonna eat the cheese. I'm gonna eat the dairy. I did that one day. And then I was like, well, that was, that was a mistake. Cause we were on a boat, man. We were on a sailboat. No, man, but like we were on a sailboat. And so like the bathroom was actually legit, but I didn't want to clog it up or anything like that. So I just held it and I took some Imodium. And then as soon as we got to our next hotel, I was just like, I released the Kraken out there, man. Like it was just, oh man.
Oh, fuck. That's great. Poop daddy.
Yeah. So Egypt was badass though, man. I definitely highly recommend going. If you're not an experienced international travel, I would definitely suggest getting a guide though.
Yeah. Well, and like, I think everything I've heard is like, go as a group. Like, it's not a place to like solo trips. So, like, go with the group.
I mean, you
can,
people. But like go with a group because it's just more fun. And then also too, you can just go in on getting a private tour guide and it'll make it so much more enjoyable.
I love that. I'm so glad you had a good time.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Just recording this podcast on a lot of drugs, man. We are getting by on a lot of caffeine and a dream. Like, holy shit.
They gave you any fun ones? Any fun drugs?
Well, so the thing is, and like we learned this from the previous clot removals, and this is like everybody in my family. So when I was talking to my mom, I was talking to my older brother, a lot of the popular like pain drugs or even like the narcotics, like it just does nothing. And so it was actually my first clot removal. We like unfortunately discovered that because it was like, obviously they don't want to start you with like the heavy duty stuff, you know? So it was like, gave me stuff, nothing's happened. Gave me something else, nothing's happening. And then suddenly I'm like crying to the nurses, right? So like for me, the magic equation is like either like morphine or like oxycodone. But basically, the surgery was very surprising. And I'll keep this super brief because I don't want to talk about it forever because I want to get to our topic. But quick recap, basically, they removed my first rib bone, which is below the collarbone. And then they removed the 2 scalene muscles, which come from the side of your neck. They basically go connect to that first rib. So you remove all of those and then you create more space for basically that subclavian vein to stop being pinched off like a little sad macaroni noodle. And so they did all that. And so, AKA like be me, right? Like it's like I prepare for Zoom, like zombie apocalypse. And so I like pack all this food, bring it to the hospital. And like I knew it was a heavy duty surgery. And so like be me, like a dummy, I wake up and I'm like strapped to the bed because it's like catheter, IV, like chest drain, like all the shit, like even had an arterial vein. And so it's like, all the things. And so I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm not taking a shit for a couple days and I'm not eating anything, right? Like, so thankfully I was basically in the hospital for kind of like a day and a half. I basically stayed a little bit extra just because my body tends to like choose violence and we'll be like, yeah, we're great. And then like things skydive off a cliff. So we basically my mom flew into town, which was super awesome. Because we actually got to go hiking and do a ton of stuff before and after, which was super dope. But I was not, how do I phrase this? I was not prepared for the aftermath of the surgery. And what I mean by that is normally when you have surgery, like you're just in pain, like you're fucked up, you're in pain. In this case, I had so much scar tissue when they went in to clean everything out that basically I have been experiencing really bad nerve pain ever since. So if you think about like having all this scar tissue just like gunked up, well, it's kind of like if you're in the kitchen and you got to like scrape it off the steel and like work really hard. Well, your brachial plexus is right next to basically that entire area that they're working. And so your brachial plexus is basically all of your nerves and all of those connections. Yeah. And so if there's damage to it, well, you deal with nerve damage. And so in my case, it's like, well, you got to evict the demons. Like we can't go remove all the stuff, but like leave all that scar tissue, right? So it's like, unfortunately, there's been a little damage to that. And so long story short, I'm basically like a little one-handed pirate over here. I've been normally wearing an arm sling, but I basically don't have any fine motor skills of my right hand. And that'll probably be the thing for for the next couple months. It's a very slow recovery. Like I think it's like 1 millimeter per day or something like that. So it could be a month from now. I'm starting to feel a little bit better. But basically, what happened was I was on gabapentin, which is a nerve drug, while I was in the hospital. So I felt totally fine in the hospital. Obviously, you leave the hospital, you still got all those drugs in your system for like 24, 48 hours. So it was like, we're good. And so it was like, we left the hospital. Like, obviously the doctors just want me to like move and walk a lot. So it's like, we went on some easy hikes, easy walks at the beach, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was like, by the time the weekend hit, I like skydived off a cliff. And I was like, uncontrollably crying. Like, obviously I was texting y'all like, yo, I am unwell, which thankfully, called the doctors, called the nurses, everybody at Hoag's been amazing. But they basically put me on a medication for, that helps with nerve pain and stuff. And so same thing, it was like better for 24 hours. And then same thing, it was like poor Charlie like gets back from jujitsu and I'm like uncontrollably crying, like hot mess express. And he's just like, hi, like what can I do? And I'm like, obviously calling my mom who's a nurse and she's like, hey, like, call them, whatever. So same thing. It's like, they basically like tripled up on the nerve medication, but I imagine I'll basically go in on Tuesday for imaging and basically like 2-week follow-up, but I'm still going to be like, hi, so your girl's a bad bitch. Like I got hand tattoos. Like obviously like pain's normally not an issue, but it's like, I still literally like can hardly type on a computer, use my phone. It's like, I need to get back to that level. And it's like, it's gotten better, but I basically get like 30 to 60 minutes where it's like, okay, I can like ghost ride this. And then that's all I got. So work stuff has definitely been super challenging. And so just do it quite literally like doing the best you can with what you have. But long story short, it was like, that's a different type of hell. Like it's different to be like, oh, I have muscle pain. Like nerve pain is
scary.
Not cool.
Yeah. Nerve pain is super scary. That happened to me actually in jiu-jitsu when I injured my neck. Like I had like complete numbness down my shoulder and it's a scary feeling because you feel like, am I paralyzed? Like what's going on?
Trust me, like the freaking spirals, because it's also like the reality of the situation is like, this is why they don't like doing these surgeries is it's like, this could be permanent. This could be my new normal. And so, it's like the same thing. It's like when we chat to the doctor after surgery and he's like, yo, like, and like backstory, I saw one of the best doctors for this surgery for thoracic outlet, syndrome. And so like literally at the hospital, he has his own floor dedicated to him, like bad bitch level 10,000. Right. And he like, is talking to me, talking to my mom. And he's like, dude, like quite literally in my lifetime and in my, my entire career, I probably do about 5 to 10 thoracic outlet syndrome surgeries per year. And in my entire career, I've only done 1 or 2 bilateral, aka both sides. And he's like, you're identical on ultrasounds. You're gonna be identical. Like you got these huge ass scalene muscles. I actually texted Brian because my doctor was like, yo, like whatever training program you're on, like legit, like you were a monster inside there. And he was just like so surprised by that. So Brian got a good kick out of that. I thought that was awesome. But yeah, I will have to have a second surgery because basically my other option would be on blood thinners for life. And like, your girl got a life to live. Like I want to get back to surfing and skateboarding and doing all that stuff. And if I'm on blood thinners, I can't do that because it's like, if I should get injured, like you're going to die and bleed out real fast. Right. So basically my game plan, because I've been like thinking about this a lot, is, I'm going to basically the earliest they could do the surgery would be like September, because they basically want 5 to 6 months to understand, okay, exactly how am I going to feel if we do this again? But I'm basically going to spend, once I'm back to like lifting in the gym, I'm just going to go ham on like, try to get strong, try to get in those reps, try to, just smash training volume, obviously ease back in, not go, ham day one, but how can I spend that couple of months that I do have and then basically swing it before the end of the year? Because it's like, I've hit my deductible, I've hit my out of pocket and all that, which side note, very important tip. If you have a health concern, if it is possible to not go a couple days before the end of the year, highly recommend doing that. And the reason for that, let me break this down for you. Obviously, your girl needed to go to the ER, like no question. I needed to go the day that I went. But I basically got a $5,000 bill for going to the ER because I don't normally go to the doctor. Like I pull up my labs, all my stuff. So I got $5,000 bill for going to the ER 2 days before the end of the year. And then obviously I turned around, I hit my deductible, I hit my out of pocket. And long story short, your girl is sad and poor right now because if I had waited 2 days more.
Hit with another, you're going to hit another deductible.
So all that being said, we're going to do a financial podcast at some point because I want to talk about the importance of investing in an HSA, the importance of having emergency money, having savings. Because like I said, health stuff, when it happens, if it happens, goddamn, I hope you have, I hope you did favors for your future self because woo. But all that to be said, we're doing all right. I'm excited to kind of get back in the swing of things. I wanted to give a quick shout out, not related to anything. We might start making this like regular on the podcast, but I have a new favorite thing, and it's the Lululemon Rest Feel Slides. Charlie now has a pair. I have them in multiple colors. They are not something you would want to wear like outside of the house, but they are the ultimate like, oh, hey, I'm walking around the house, I'm lounging. They're super comfy. They're super springy. Like I said, I personally wouldn't recommend like wearing them out about, but like if you want a super comfy, like happy little foot while you're,
They look comfortable.
yeah, while you're like lounging around, 10 out of 10 recommend. Lastly, I wanted to share a quick little snippet because I have been working on a new morning routine because what I have assessed is that I do not get joy out of waking up in the morning and immediately like scrambling, stressing, trying to start work. And so something that I've been implementing basically since post-surgery is that basically trying to change that and trying to actually have a morning routine. I've always been very anti-morning routine because I used to be like, oh yeah, I love waking up and choosing violence. I don't like it anymore. It's not serving me in 2023. So saying goodbye like a bad boyfriend. But I wanted to share because, like I said, just thinking about this. And so basically what I started doing is that every morning, Charlie and I walk, we go get coffee. I've shared about this on social media, but it's basically like non-negotiable us time that even if he's busy with EMT and school stuff, even if I'm busy with work, it's time for us that we can get outside. The coffee shop is like a little 6 or 7 minute walk, but it's like, hopefully we get some sunshine, we get some steps. But it's just time that, again, we can go, we grab coffee, it's fun. But it's just like non-negotiable date time. So we've been doing that. There's been a couple days where we skipped that. And then I realized like it really set the tone badly for my day. So I was like, okay, that is a staple. That is something we do. But then something else I've kind of been playing with is it's just like, because I am in a position that I can't do a ton right now, I am trying to start my day with movement. And so it's like, basically what I'm trying to do, I've had a lot of resistance with trying to stay active kind of the past few days because I just feel like shit. And so it's kind of like, when you need to shower and you just don't, you like put it off. And then it's like, if you just go shower, you suddenly like feel amazing and feel way better. Yeah. Like I've actually been experiencing that towards exercise because it's like, when you're in chronic pain, like you don't want to do anything. But the reality of the situation is for me, the doctor is like, dude, like keep moving, keep that circulation. Like it's going to make you feel better. And so same thing, something I started doing is just like, hey, can I get on my Concept 2 bike or can I get on there for just 10 minutes? Like it doesn't matter how long I stay on there, but can you get on there for 5 to 10 minutes? And even if it's like not even zone 1, right? It's like meet my body where it's at. Can you just like move, pedal? You can scroll Instagram, you can play games, you can do whatever you want, but can you just get on there, get moving? And then same thing. It's like, my goal is, can I just do like 10 to 15 minutes, like body weight bullshit, basically until I'm actually cleared to go back to the gym. So like, can I do some easy air squats? Can I do some easy, lunges, split squats, stuff like that? So that's kind of what I'm implementing. And I've found a drastic difference kind of starting my day just with a lot of movement. So just wanted to share that on today's podcast. Because like I said, it's like I have had all the time in the world to evaluate a lot of things in terms of, is this serving me, things that are bringing me joy or things that are like cramping my style. So I thought those were kind of some fun things to share and start the day with. But today, we are going to talk all about thyroid stuff. Everybody has been up in my DMs. And this is something that, I've struggled with since I was 17. So, I'm not the new kid around the block when it comes to thyroid stuff. And so I'm just super excited to kind of chat about that. And so if you are somebody that, you're feeling run down, you're dealing with your hair falling out, you are feeling cold all the time, you're struggling with slow digestion, are you gaining weight or just suddenly struggling with your weight, even though nothing has changed or even though you're doing, air quotes, all the right things, that can often be signs that your thyroid isn't so happy. So
you just described like probably
everybody's like
80%, 80% of people.
Yeah. But it is.
It's super common. It's super common.
They say, it's like, I actually tried to Google because I wanted to see if there was an updated stat, but the current stat still says like 1 in 8 women. You can also obviously see it in dudes. It's a little less common, but you do see it in our fellas as well. But it's like, I personally think that number is way higher. And it's just because it's like, people don't know, people don't test the right things. And there's just not enough testing there. But Today's episode will be a little bit different. Basically, like, we're going to kind of do Q&A style because this is, kind of my specialty and jam. So we want to do a similar one and basically do like Alex with jujitsu and how he balances like nutrition and training and stuff. But today's going to kind of be a lot of me on the mic and Alex just kind of play an interview. We should have gotten you like one of those little microphones. Fuck. You could have borrowed Jen's. Dude, we suck. You could have had the chesty mic. Damn. Well, without further ado, I'm going to have a microphone over here. I'm just to talk with my ghost energy.
Well, yeah. I mean, so with you said you had diagnosed with hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you were 17?
Yeah. So I was a teenager. So I'll just say, like, if you've listened to other podcasts, I've talked about it on so many others. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it, I think, also on the intro episode. But the quick and sleazy on that was I was basically diagnosed as a teen. I spent a really long time struggling because there just wasn't tons of information out there, kind of like there was, today. It's like today you can like grab books, podcasts, but it just wasn't there wasn't a ton of information out there. And so it's why I love talking about it, because it's like, yo, how can I help you skip the learning curve on stuff? But I did. I really struggled like through my 20s. And it wasn't until like kind of my late 20s that as I got more education, I was then empowered to make changes to basically not being an asshole in the ways that I was, eating, sleeping, training, all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody doesn't know anything about the thyroid. Like what is the thyroid gland? What does it do? How does it work? Why is this even important?
Yeah, totally. So basically your thyroid is just a little butterfly shaped gland in your neck. And it is quite literally like the whole analogy of like happy wife, happy life. If your thyroid is not happy and it's not picking up what you're putting down on your nutrition, your fitness, your lifestyle front, like you're going to feel like dookie, you're going to feel like poo-poo, So your thyroid's basically just a butterfly-shaped gland. It regulates and interacts with everything from your sleep, your metabolism. If your thyroid's off, there's likely a good chance your other sex hormones are probably off. It just cascades into so many things in the body. And so with that, it's like we can have a lot of things that go wrong. And so if we're running slow and we're running low, that would be basically hypothyroidism. And so that's where the body isn't producing enough thyroid hormone. Reversely, if we're producing too much, which it isn't as common, like more people see the hypo side of things, but you do see people that run on the hyper spectrum things, or if you just end up like accidentally taking too much meds because you can't get things regulated. Hyperthyroidism is, again, hyper, fast. It means your body is producing too much thyroid hormone. And so kind of the like icky one that can also happen is you can have an autoimmune reaction, which is called basically Hashimoto's. It just means that you have thyroid antibodies. And so basically your body's pissed, again, whether it's, stuff that you are doing and conscious, choices that you're making, or could be, stuff in your environment. Like there's always so much discussion about like endocrine disruptors in our exposures to plastics and just all of these like fragrances and things, which I don't, again, it's like, I don't want to get into that stuff today, but basically just know that, you can basically have an autoimmune component to this. It's called Hashimoto's. And so basically your body, creates an autoimmune response. It starts attacking your own thyroid gland. And so as your thyroid gets damaged over time, well, obviously it's not pumping out hormones. And then you start running, hypothyroid as well. So the biggie is just understanding it's like any of these can happen at any point in your life. There's a lot of things that we'll kind of get into, like who's the most likely to have it and this and that. But just understand, it's like this is something to check for regularly, because it's like if your thyroid's not happy, you're probably going to feel like shit.
So what are some things that you typically see with people who have thyroid issues? Like what are some signs, some symptoms?
Yeah, so we kind of got into this at the beginning of the podcast, but the biggies are really going to be, are we struggling with either weight gain or just struggling with our weight? So it's like, yo, I'm trying to diet and nothing's happening. Like I'm dropping my food.
Calories. Yeah, nothing
happening.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, you're going to see really, really bad exhaustion and fatigue, feeling cold all the time, having super heavy, super crampy periods. Hair loss is a big one. I remember when I was a teen, like quite literally, I'd shower and just be like pulling out mounds of hair. Another big one, like every time I see this, I'm like, we need to check your thyroid. But if you are somebody that you're always dealing with constipation, you have really slow digestion, you're only taking a dump every like 3 to 5 days. If it's cooking in there a few days, you need to check your thyroid. Like quite literally
Lord.
check your shit. And the other one is like if you're feeling cold all the time. So if you have really cold hands and fingers, if you're always rocking a hoodie when it doesn't really seem appropriate, or again, just feeling cold all the time. But other ones, like the other things you can also see, and this is actually like not super commonly known by people, but if you are struggling with high cholesterol levels, just like out of the blue, that can actually be related to thyroid stuff. If you're chronically struggling with anemia, same thing. It's like if you're kind of doing all the right things, sometimes that can be related to thyroid stuff. Depression and mood stuff also kind of go commonly hand in hand. Same thing if sex drive is just like a big old goose egg, that can be another thing. But it's like with all of these, you kind of notice it's the body running slow, or it's the body running sluggish in terms of, again, you're only going.
And this is hypothyroid, correct?
Yep. And I'm
hypo,
to be honest, I'm just going to focus on that today because, like I said, it's the more common of the two. Basically, just think for everything hyper, everything's going to be flipped. So it's going to be like, hi, like, why am I losing weight even though I'm eating all the food and not trying to? I'm feeling anxious all the time. I'm feeling jittery. I'm feeling super shaky, or, I'm dealing with like heart palpitations and not being able to sleep at night. Just kind of frame it in that way that it's like if everything it seems like it's going fast, that's hyperthyroidism. If everything seems like it's going slow or it's just like not going well, that's probably more like the hypo side of stuff.
Yeah, actually, it's quite interesting. A lot of these symptoms, do they often come together? Or can you have just like one thing that you experience and you should take a look at it? Is like any one particular thing like, oh yeah, I definitely need to like check this out? Or is it more of like a combination of these things?
I think it really just depends. Cause like, especially, I'm about to be 34. So it's like, holy shit. Like I've been dealing with this for like quite literally a minute. And it's like, there have been times where I would go do testing because I'd be like, yo, I've got all the symptoms. Like I bet I'm running super low. And then it would be something super dumb where I'd be like, oh shit, I'm not getting enough D. Like quite literally be like, oh, I have low vitamin D, or like, oh, I'm running slightly like low iron or slightly anemic. So I think that's the frustrating thing is it's like, there's so many things to test. It might not be your thyroid. It might be, your other sex hormones. Maybe you're not producing enough progesterone. In addition to it can be something as simple or dumb as like, oh, hey, I'm a little low in vitamin B12. Like shit, that might elicit the same, very similar or a lot of the same symptoms. So I think again, it's like whenever we put out infographics or if like we were listing off symptoms and you're like, damn, I'm like,
that's me.
Yeah, like this is me. Well, like, yeah, go get your shit checked. But I think I'm a really big advocate of, again, like thyroid stuff can happen at any time. So I'm just a big advocate. It's like, yo, like literally just check it. Like it's such like your insurance is going to cover it. It's such an easy thing to check because it's like, if you're going to have problems, like let it be something like, hey, I'm falling short on a habit, or it's something actionable I can actually change. Because again, it's like if your thyroid levels are garbage, you're probably not going to see, great or quick or easy success trying to diet or do the things you're trying to do, whether it's chase muscle gain, any of that stuff. And so I'm a big fan, like check it regularly, even if it's never been a thing in your life, like check it once a year, check it every 6 months, that sort of thing for sure.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, like what kinds of tests should you run if you suspect that you may have a thyroid issue? Like if you went to the doctor, like what would you need to ask for?
So I'll back it up a little, and I would just start this conversation with, it is a non-negotiable to have a doctor that you love and trust. And so the biggest thing I always hear from people is it'll be like, oh, well, I have these symptoms. I read your post on social media, I listened to a podcast, whatever. I think I have symptoms of thyroid issues. I went to my doctor. My doctor won't pull the labs. What do I do? And it's like, yo, if you went to a restaurant and you had shitty ass service, you're probably not going to go back there. So same thing, if you're a paying customer for your doctor and you're not getting the things you want from them and they're not advocating for you to feel your best, why would you keep going back to them? Like there's a million doctors out there. So go find one that is going to advocate for you and be, your kind of biggest cheerleader and your biggest in that way. Like I don't, that is something I don't understand where people are like, oh, well, just keep it. It's like, bro, what?
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually had clients that have told me their doctor told them that they were stupid, basically, like without saying stupid, but essentially was just like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're wrong.
Bad breakup, man. Dump it like a bad boyfriend. Get it out of there.
What's crazy about that is I did have a client that was her experience, and I suggested that she go get a second opinion. They ran the tests. Turns out she had hypothyroid. She had Hashimoto's. Like, and this happens all the time.
That happened with my health stuff. Literally, the first doctor, I went and saw a cardiovascular doctor for my blood clot stuff, and he literally blew me off, which, you best believe I went straight to Google and left a bad Yelp review on that bad boy, because holy shit.
And not all doctors are like this, but there are definitely, like you were saying, like you need to find one that's going to listen to you and advocate for you.
Well, and it's so tricky, right? Because it's like, especially if you're just starting to get into the trenches, like you have to be educated. You have to be able to advocate
know enough to ask
yourself.
The questions. Yeah,
correct. And so it's like that is always, and it comes back to like why I publish so much educational content. Is it's like, even if you don't have thyroid stuff, I want you to know the common signs and symptoms so that if it should ever happen, you know what rabbit hole to start going down on, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is, again, back to the stuff. It's like, when we were in school, why did nobody teach us about like, hey, this is how to do your taxes. Hey, this is how to like manage your money and your finances and, invest in retirement. Like, where was this discussion again about like really common health things that we just need to know and be educated about? So kind of, all that to say, quick recap is it's like, you have to have a doctor you love and trust. And so also just imagine again, it's like you can have an awesome general doctor. You can have, an awesome PCP, but just make sure and be careful that you're not going to, a pizza shop and you're asking for a sandwich, or you're going to a pasta shop asking for salad. Like you want to go to a doctor that specializes in the things that you believe you might have. So in this case, if you're like, hey, I think I have some thyroid or some hormone stuff going on. Well, don't go to your PCP. Start by going, get on Google, do a quick Google search and search for, thyroid specialist, San Diego, California. Look through the reviews. Maybe don't go to the person that got like 2 reviews or no review. Look for the person that's like, yo, I love this doctor. They're amazing, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, do that. And again, it's 2023. Telemedicine is so common. And there's so many amazing doctors that also now, it's just like FaceTime and you chat with them and kind of go that way. Yeah. So all that to say, stop ordering pizza at a pasta shop. Go to the person specialized in what you need.
What kind of doctor do you go? Like, what is he they an endocrinologist, or like what kind of doctor do you visit?
I have like all the primo doctors these days because they're like, dude, this chick. I don't think I've shared on the podcast, but I actually came back for all the markers of lupus, which would be wild because lupus actually runs in my family, and I do have a couple of symptoms that's like, they've never like been necessarily correlated to thyroid stuff, but I've always been like, oh, that's kind of weird. And, so we have some lupus rabbit holes to go down after this. But my doctor that's been managing my thyroid stuff for years and years is actually Sean Tassone. He's an OBGYN in Austin. But originally I just saw him because it was like needed my annual pap smear or something like that. And then he actually specializes in like hormone therapy, and he does a lot of stuff actually with a little bit older demographic than I. So he really specializes in like perimenopause and menopause and basically helping women optimize during that period of life. But he's amazing. It's like quite literally, it's like, I can, send an email whenever I want to check labs. It's like I personally try to check my stuff every 2 to 3 months just because I want to see stuff before it starts to go down the poop hole, right? Like I want to see it early.
Because thyroid it's not like an instant, it takes time to change, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is like, you couldn't like go on meds and like check it monthly. It's like, it does take a little bit of time for hormones just aren't fast to move. Like that's the biggest thing. But yeah, you're 100% correct. It's like those are a little bit slower to change on that spectrum. But yeah, for me, it's actually an OBGYN. But normally, like I said, it's like if I hadn't found a doctor early on like that kind of had like multidisciplinary, I'd 100% be hitting up Google and go that way for sure.
So back to the lab tests, like, because there are some specific tests that people need to check. And a lot of times I think like most physicians will only check like one blood marker and so tell us what values do people need to run when they get a thyroid check?
Quick backstory on like basically why that happens is back in the 90s, it used to be super popular or it was just like the best information we had available to us at the time, right? We just didn't know enough information about the thyroid. So it used to be super common, or it used to be completely normal practice to basically only look at TSH, which is your messenger hormone that basically says, yo, we need to make more of this thing. So quick breakdown, your TSH is your messenger hormone. Your free T4 is basically kind of the Legos. It's the building blocks to the castle, if you want to think of it that way. And then your free T3 is basically your actual thyroid hormone. Like that's the goal. That's what we're trying to make. When we have a lot of that, we're going to feel good. We're going to feel our best. And so if you want to think of, it's like we need to basically take those Legos, we need to take those little bricks, and then we need to actually build the castle. So when we convert, we're taking free T4, we turn it into free T3, and then we ride off into the sunset. We're happy. We feel awesome. So that's kind of the big three is we're wanting to check TSH. We're wanting to check free T4. We're wanting to check free T3. And then we need to keep going because, again, we can get thyroid antibodies at any time. And so that's going to be your TPO and your TGAB. I always tell people it's like you don't have to check those every time. Like check those three of TSH, free T4, free T3. And then again, it's like maybe like once a year. Again, if you feel good, your thyroid values come back, but like you're just not it feels like something's off, like then check those. Even for me, it's like I check antibodies maybe like once a year, something like that. I don't stress over it too bad because it's just these days not something I've struggled with. There was a period, it was like 2013, 2014. That was like the one and only time I had antibodies. And then I haven't had a problem since. But yeah, basically you need 5 values. But then, like I said, you got to keep going. And so it's like you would want to check things like your vitamin D levels. You would want to check, like it's really common to see deficiencies in like B12 or again, like things like iron, running anemic and stuff like that. So there are other things, and we can kind of go into those later that I would suggest checking as well. But in terms of specific thyroid, if your doctor ain't pulling all 5, give them the middle finger and go get in bed with somebody that will. We are not here for that energy, and out they go.
Yeah. So what's considered if you had hypothyroid? What would be off in those values?
So I'm going to refer, Mind Pump Media has interviewed so many amazing doctors about this. I know they did one specifically with Stephen Cabral where he actually went through and he said, hey, as a doctor, these are like the specific, I want to see you, in these specific ranges. So I would, refer to that because I loved that podcast. It was so informational. And that was probably just from a few months ago. It was a newer podcast, but it was Mind Pump Media and Stephen Cabral. But definitely check that out if you're somebody that you're like, I want to nerd out over the lab side of stuff. But there's a couple of different ways that you can see it. One of the most common ways is that your TSH is going to be really, really high. So if you pull your TSH and you're like in the sunset of like, hey, my TSH came back as like a 3, a 4, a 5. Well, if your body is pumping out this message of, hey, produce more thyroid hormone, we might want to do a little more digging, right? Same thing, it's like if your free T3 is really low, particularly for me, this is again, just me personally, I know that I tend to feel best when my free T3 is somewhere basically between like a 3 and a 3.5. Anytime I'm dipping below the 3s, if I'm like 2.8, 2.5. God bless. There's been days where I was low twos. That's historically when I know I'm going to feel like garbage. And that's for most people. The biggest thing you have to understand with thyroid stuff is that we have reference ranges. And just like with nutrition, right? It's like if you look at the reference range for protein, it'll be like, yeah, you just need like 50 grams a day of protein, man, you good. And it's like, yo, we're trying to get like body weight, right? Or like 0.7 body weight. Very similar. It's like, when we're looking at reference ranges for thyroid stuff, they're huge. They're very outdated. And they also include basically statistics from elderly people and stuff like that. So it's like we're going off reference ranges. Well, yeah, we might be in the reference range, but we want like an optimal range, right? Like we want to feel good. Right. And so basically optimal ranges for stuff are just going to be a little bit tighter. They're basically going to be historically where we know people feel best. And so again, it's like every doctor that you talk to is going to have a little bit, different experience because it's just, hey, over the years, like this is what I've seen in my practice. So this is where I kind of like to keep my people. So again, I'm comfortable sharing like my personal numbers because again, it's like that is my personal experience. But it's like some people, maybe they get a free T3 of 3.5 and they feel terrible. And it's actually for them, they're running a little hyper. And so that's the biggest thing to understand is it's like, it's good to know and have guardrails for your lab work of, hey, historically, this is where you should fall or this is where we're trying to sit. But understand, keep going because it's like, well, if you're still having symptoms, well, maybe you're somebody that you need to be at, the top end of a range or stuff like that. So it's like, keep those guardrails in mind, but then keep optimizing based off of your symptoms and how you feel. And again, that just gets back to like, you got to have a good doctor. I don't want to be seeing like a nurse practitioner for this. Like I want a doctor with years of experience that can say, hey, in my 10, 15, whatever years of practice, this is where I want to see my people.